The morning sky above New York burned with an unnatural purple light. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the orbital station, watching massive alien ships emerge from what looked like tiers in space itself. Each vessel stretched, longer than 3 city blocks, their dark metal surfaces covered in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Jake had seen enemy ships before during the border conflicts, but never anything like this. These weren't raiders or scouts. This was an invasion fleet. "Sir, we're getting readings from 17 more ships," reported Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from the communication station. Her voice stayed steady, but Jake could see the fear in her eyes. "They're positioning themselves around Earth's orbit." President Linda Carter received the alien message at exactly noon. She sat in the emergency session of the United Earth Council, surrounded by military leaders and diplomats who had never faced anything like this. The main screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. The creature called itself Ambassador Veltar. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and a head that looked like a mix between a praying mantis and a spider. Its voice came through the translators as cold and mechanical. "Humans of Earth," Veltar began, "you have violated the ancient boundaries set by the Hegemony Council. Your species has spread to 17 star systems without permission. This expansion ends today." General Marcus Stone, sitting to the president's right, felt his hands clench into fists. He had spent 30 years in the military, fighting to protect human colonies from pirates and hostile aliens. Now this creature was telling them they had no right to exist beyond Earth. "You have 72 hours to comply with our demands," Veltar continued. "First, you will abandon all colonies outside this solar system. Second, you will dismantle your military fleets. Third, you will accept tributary status under hegemony rule. Failure to comply will result in the complete destruction of your species." The screen went dark. The council room erupted in angry voices. Defense Secretary Ryan Hayes stood up, his face red with fury. "They can't be serious. We have over 50 million people living in those colonies. We can't just abandon them." "Admiral," Claire Brooks, commander of Earth's space fleet, studied the tactical displays. "Their ships are using technology we don't understand. Our weapons barely scratched their hulls during the border skirmishes. If they wanted to destroy Earth right now, I'm not sure we could stop them." President Carter raised her hand for silence. "Options, people. I need options." Dr. Kevin Park, Earth's leading expert on alien technology, spoke up from his position near the back of the room. "I've been studying the wreckage from our previous encounters. Their weapons use some kind of quantum resonance technology. It's advanced, but not impossible to understand." "How long would you need to develop countermeasures?" asked the president. "Months, maybe years," Kevin replied honestly. "We're talking about technology that's centuries ahead of ours." "Captain," Rick Davis, representing the Mars Defense Fleet, shook his head. "We don't have months. We have 3 days." The next 24 hours passed in a blur of activity. All across Earth and the colonies, people watched the news with growing panic. The alien ships hung in space like dark clouds, occasionally firing. Warning shots that destroyed unmanned satellites with casual ease. In the military command centers, officers worked around the clock to prepare Earth's defenses. Engineer Lisa Grant led teams of scientists and technicians, trying to find any weakness in the alien technology. They had captured some equipment during previous encounters, but understanding it was like trying to learn quantum physics from looking at a broken radio. Commander Susan Walsh, stationed at the Titan mining facility, coordinated with other colonial leaders. They had military units scattered across 17 systems, but most were designed to fight pirates and smugglers, not an advanced alien invasion force. The hegemony demonstrated their power on the second day. Without warning, they fired on Earth's main orbital defense platform. The massive station, which had taken 5 years to build and housed 3,000 people, simply vanished in a flash of purple light. No debris remained, no radiation signature. It was as if the station had never existed. Colonel Tony Mitchell watched the display from the underground command bunker. "They're not just destroying our defenses," he realized. "They're showing us how easily they could erase us completely." The alien sent another message. Veltar appeared on screens across Earth and the colonies. This demonstration was necessary to prevent any foolish resistance. We have destroyed similar civilizations on 437 worlds. Compliance is your only option for survival. But something unexpected happened. Instead of panic, the demonstration sparked anger. Captain Amy Rodriguez, now assigned to evacuate key personnel from Earth, found herself talking to a group of young soldiers. "They think they can just show up and tell us how to live," said Sergeant Bill Cooper, a Marine from the outer colonies. "My family has been mining asteroids for 3 generations. I'm not giving up my home because some bug-eyed monster says so." Similar conversations took place across human space. On Mars, factory workers volunteered to work double shifts building weapons. On the outer colonies, miners and farmers signed up for militia training. Earth's universities emptied as students enlisted in emergency military programs. President Carter met with her advisors on the final night before the deadline. The alien fleet had grown to 25 ships, each one capable of destroying entire cities. Earth's military had perhaps a dozen vessels that could pose any threat at all. "We could surrender," suggested one advisor. "Accept tributary status, keep most of our people alive." General Stone slammed his hand on the table. "And watch them turn our children into slaves? Watch them strip our worlds for resources while we thank them for the privilege?" Admiral Brooks pulled up tactical displays. "Even if we wanted to fight, our chances are essentially zero. Their shields can stop anything we can throw at them. Their weapons can destroy our ships from distances we can't even reach." Dr. Helen Price, Earth's leading expert on combat medicine, had been quiet during most meetings. Now she spoke up. "What if we don't fight them the way they expect?" Everyone turned to look at her. "Every military engagement we've studied shows the same pattern," Helen continued. "The hegemony overwhelms their enemies with superior technology, forcing them to surrender or destroying them completely. But what if we don't play by their rules?" President Carter leaned forward. "What are you suggesting?" "We have one advantage they don't expect," Helen said. "We're human. We adapt. We survive. We find ways to win when winning should be impossible." The room fell silent as her words sank in. With 6 hours left before the deadline, President Carter made her decision. She appeared on every screen across human space, addressing nearly 300 million people scattered across 17 star systems. "The aliens want us to kneel," she said, her voice steady despite the impossible odds. "They want us to abandon our children in the stars and accept chains around our necks. But they made one critical mistake. They gave us 72 hours to think about it." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "Humanity has never been good at kneeling. Time to show these aliens what we're good at instead." The countdown had begun, but instead of preparing for surrender, humanity prepared for war. Dr. Kevin Park had not slept in 36 hours. His laboratory, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, buzzed with activity as teams of scientists worked to understand alien technology. They had pieces of hegemony equipment captured during border skirmishes, and Kevin was determined to find something useful before time ran out. "The quantum resonance patterns are consistent," he told his team, pointing at the data on his screens. "Their weapons and shields all operate on the same basic frequency. If we can disrupt that frequency..." Engineer Lisa Grant looked up from her workstation. She had been modifying human weapons since the ultimatum arrived. "I think I can build a disruption field generator, but it would be short range only. Maybe a few hundred meters at most." "That's better than nothing," Kevin replied. "How many can you build?" "Give me every engineer on Earth and 48 hours, and I can make maybe 50 units." It wasn't much against a fleet of 25 alien dreadnoughts, but it was a start. Admiral Claire Brooks coordinated with colonial forces across human space. The situation looked hopeless on paper. Earth's main fleet consisted of 12 heavy cruisers and 30 smaller vessels. The colonies had mining ships, cargo haulers, and a few patrol boats. Against hegemony technology, they might as well be fighting with stone axes. But Brooks had spent her career studying military history, and she remembered something important. Superior technology didn't always guarantee victory. Captain Rick Davis commanded the Mars Defense Fleet from his flagship, the Red Planet. His force consisted of 6 military vessels and about 30 converted civilian ships. Not impressive, but his crews knew how to fight in the asteroid fields around Mars, where sensors didn't work well and maneuverability mattered more than firepower. "Admiral," Rick reported during a secure communication, "my people have been thinking. The aliens fight like they expect their enemies to line up and trade shots. But what if we don't give them what they expect?" Brooks smiled grimly. "Explain." "Guerrilla tactics, hit and run. Make them chase us through terrain that favors us, not them." Commander Susan Walsh, operating from the outer colonies, had similar ideas. Her forces were even smaller than Rick's, but they knew every asteroid, every hidden base, every supply depot in their region of space. "We can't beat them in a straight fight," she reported, "but we can make them bleed for every system they want to take." General Marcus Stone had been busy creating something unprecedented in human history. Using emergency powers granted by President Carter, he established training camps on hidden asteroids throughout the solar system. Volunteers came from every human world, and Stone's instructors put them through the most intensive military training program ever designed. "We're not training soldiers," Stone explained to his staff. "We're creating something new, something that can adapt to any situation, survive any environment, and never give up." Colonel Tony Mitchell, Stone's chief strategist, had been studying every battle the hegemony had ever fought. The pattern was always the same. The aliens would arrive with overwhelming force, demonstrate their power, and wait for surrender. If the enemy resisted, they would systematically destroy military targets until resistance collapsed. "They're predictable," Mitchell realized. "They've been using the same tactics for centuries because they always work. No one has ever forced them to adapt." Dr. Helen Price worked with Mitchell to develop what they began calling the Crimson Protocol. Instead of fighting the way the aliens expected, humans would use their greatest advantage, their ability to think creatively under pressure. "We need to turn our weaknesses into strengths," Helen explained to a gathering of military leaders. "We can't match their technology, so we don't try. We can't beat them in direct combat, so we don't fight fair. We make them come to us, on our terms, in situations they've never encountered before." The plan that emerged was audacious and desperate. Rather than defend fixed positions, human forces would scatter throughout the solar system and hit the aliens from unexpected directions. Instead of protecting civilian populations, they would evacuate key personnel and let the aliens occupy empty cities while human forces operated from hidden bases. Captain Amy Rodriguez led the evacuation efforts. In just 2 days, transport ships moved millions of people from Earth's major cities to underground facilities or distant colonies. The aliens, monitoring human communications, saw what appeared to be panic and preparation for surrender. They were wrong. Engineer Lisa Grant's teams worked around the clock to produce their disruption devices. The units were crude and unreliable, but tests showed they could interfere with hegemony shields for brief periods. Combined with modified human weapons, they might actually damage alien ships. More importantly, human engineers had been reverse engineering, captured alien equipment. They couldn't build hegemony-level technology, but they could learn to disrupt it. Every alien device they studied revealed new vulnerabilities. Dr. Kevin Park made a breakthrough on the second day. While studying alien communication equipment, he discovered something unexpected. "Their systems are designed for perfect coordination," he explained to President Carter. "Every ship in their fleet shares data constantly. If we can inject false information into their network, we can confuse them," Carter finished. "Make them see things that aren't there, or hide things that are there," Kevin confirmed. The president authorized Kevin's team to build what they called ghost transmitters. The devices would make human ships appear to be somewhere else, or make empty space appear to contain dangerous obstacles. It was a small advantage, but every edge mattered. As the final hours ticked away, human forces moved into position throughout the solar system. Captain Rick Davis took his fleet into the asteroid belt around Mars, where his ships could hide among the rocky debris. Commander Susan Walsh dispersed her forces among the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, using the gas giants' radiation to mask their signatures. Commander Jake Morrison, now commanding the rebuilt UES Defiance, led a small task force to Earth's moon. His mission was simple but nearly impossible. Get close enough to the alien fleet to test Lisa Grant's disruption devices. President Carter addressed the nation one final time before the deadline expired. She spoke from a bunker deep beneath the North American continent, surrounded by the military leaders who had spent 3 days preparing for humanity's greatest battle. "In 6 hours, our deadline expires," she began. "The aliens expect us to surrender. They expect us to abandon our colonies, dismantle our fleets, and bow our heads in submission. They believe they have given us no choice." She paused, looking at the camera with steel in her eyes. But humans have always been good at finding choices where none exist. 3 days ago, they demanded we kneel. Instead, we've spent that time forging something new. We call it the Crimson Legion, and it represents everything humanity has learned about survival, adaptation, and refusing to give up. Across human space, military units received their final orders. The plan was complex, coordinated across 17 star systems, and depended on perfect timing. If it worked, humanity might survive the next 24 hours. If it failed, the human species would be extinct by tomorrow's sunset. "The aliens think they know us," Carter continued. "They think we're just another primitive species to be conquered or destroyed. They've studied our technology, our weapons, our ships, but they made one critical error." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "They never bothered to study what makes us human." The transmission ended. Across the solar system, human forces made final preparations. In hidden bases and camouflaged ships, soldiers, sailors, pilots, and marines prepared to show the galaxy what humanity could accomplish when backed into a corner. The hegemony had given Earth 72 hours to surrender. Instead, humanity had used that time to forge the Crimson Legion. Soon, the aliens would learn the difference. The 72 hours expired at exactly noon, Earth Standard Time. Ambassador Veltar expected to receive humanity's surrender. Instead, he received something that would change galactic history forever. Commander Jake Morrison's ship, the UES Defiance, materialized from behind Earth's moon like a ghost. The hegemony sensors had shown empty space seconds before, but now a human cruiser was racing directly toward their flagship at full speed. "Impossible," hissed Veltar from his command throne. "How did they penetrate our sensor net?" His tactical officer, a spider-like creature with 12 eyes, checked his instruments twice. "Ambassador, our sensors show nothing until the human ship appeared. It's as if they were invisible." Jake smiled grimly as he watched the alien flagship grow larger on his screen. Dr. Kevin Park's ghost transmitters were working perfectly. The alien sensors saw what the humans wanted them to see, nothing more and nothing less. "All stations prepare for combat," Jake ordered. "Remember, we only get one chance at this." Engineer Lisa Grant's disruption device hummed to life in the Defiance's forward section. The crude human technology clashed with alien quantum frequencies, creating a brief window of vulnerability in the hegemony shields. Jake's gunner, Lieutenant Sam Porter, had been waiting for this moment since the aliens arrived. "Target locked. Sir, all weapons ready. Fire." The Defiance unleashed everything it had. Missiles, energy beams, and kinetic rounds struck the alien flagship's weakened shields. For the first time in centuries, a hegemony vessel took damage from primitive weapons. Alarms blared throughout the alien fleet. Veltar watched in shock as his flagship's shields flickered and died. Human weapons, which should have been useless against hegemony technology, were tearing into his ship's armor. But Jake's attack was just the beginning. Captain Rick Davis led his Mars Defense Fleet out of the asteroid belt in a coordinated assault. His ships had been hiding among the rocky debris, using the asteroids to mask their approach. Now they struck at the alien fleet's flanks, their weapons enhanced with Lisa Grant's disruption technology. "Target their engines," Rick ordered his pilots. "Don't try to destroy them, just cripple them." The human ships danced between the alien vessels, too small and fast for the massive hegemony weapons to track effectively. The aliens had designed their tactics for fighting other dreadnoughts, not swarms of smaller craft attacking from multiple directions. Commander Susan Walsh's forces struck from the outer system. Her ships, disguised as cargo haulers and mining vessels, had approached slowly over the past day. The aliens had dismissed them as fleeing civilians. Now they revealed their true nature as military vessels loaded with weapons and willing crews. All units, execute Crimson Protocol, Susan broadcast to her forces. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and get out before they can respond. The hegemony had never faced anything like this. Their enemies usually assembled their fleets for traditional battles, capital ship against capital ship, but the humans were fighting like a swarm of angry insects, stinging from every direction and disappearing before the aliens could retaliate. Veltar tried to coordinate his fleet's response, but human jamming technology disrupted his communications. Dr. Kevin Park's teams had studied alien comm systems and learned to inject chaos into their perfect networks. Status report, Veltar demanded. 3 ships have lost engines, reported his tactical officer. 2 more have damaged weapons systems. The humans are targeting specific subsystems instead of trying to destroy us outright. Clever, admitted Veltar. They know they cannot win a direct engagement, so they seek to cripple us instead. But the real shock came when Colonel Tony Mitchell's ground forces launched their assault. The hegemony had never been boarded by enemy forces. Their warfare was conducted at long range, with defeated enemies surrendering before physical contact became necessary. The concept of soldiers fighting inside their own ships was alien to them. Mitchell's teams used captured alien transport technology to breach the hulls of damaged hegemony vessels. The soldiers wore improvised armor and carried weapons designed specifically for close-quarters combat in alien environments. Remember your training, Mitchell broadcast to his teams as they stormed through alien corridors. They don't know how to fight hand-to-hand, use that advantage. The hegemony crew members were unprepared for human soldiers appearing in their command centers and engineering sections. The aliens were physically larger and stronger than humans, but they had no experience with close combat tactics. Humans, on the other hand, had been perfecting the art of killing each other at close range for thousands of years. Sergeant Bill Cooper led his squad through the corridors of an alien dreadnought, hunting for the ship's computer core. The aliens they encountered seemed confused and frightened by the human assault. They had weapons, but they didn't know how to use them effectively in confined spaces. They fight like they're following a manual, Cooper reported to Mitchell. No improvisation, no adaptation. Once we disrupt their standard procedures, they don't know what to do. The psychological impact was as important as the physical damage. For the first time in their history, hegemony forces were being outfought by a supposedly primitive species. The aliens had conquered hundreds of worlds, but they had never faced an enemy that refused to follow the established rules of galactic warfare. Dr. Helen Price's combat enhancement drugs proved their worth during the boarding actions. Human soldiers moved faster, fought longer, and ignored injuries that would have stopped unenhanced troops. The aliens found themselves facing enemies that seemed almost superhuman in their determination and capability. General Marcus Stone coordinated the broader battle from his command center on Luna. The plan was working better than anyone had dared hope, but he knew the real test was still coming. The hegemony would adapt to human tactics eventually, and when they did, superior numbers and technology would tell. Phase 1 complete, Stone reported to President Carter. We've damaged or crippled 8 alien vessels and captured 2 more. Casualties are lighter than projected. Excellent, Carter replied. But this is just the opening move. How long before they figure out what we're doing? Not long, Stone admitted. Maybe 6 hours before they develop countermeasures for our disruption technology. Maybe 12 before they adapt their tactics to deal with boarding parties. Admiral, Claire Brooks had been monitoring alien communications throughout the battle. The hegemony commanders were confused and angry, but they were also learning. Already they were modifying their formations and adjusting their sensor frequencies to counter-human stealth technology. We need to hit them again before they adapt, Brooks advised, and we need to hit them harder. The second wave of attacks came from an unexpected direction. Captain Amy Rodriguez had spent the previous day evacuating civilians from Earth's major cities. Now she revealed that the evacuation had been a cover for something else entirely. All cargo vessels begin Phase 2, Amy broadcast on a secure channel. The cargo ships that had been ferrying people to safety suddenly revealed hidden weapons and began attacking the alien fleet from above Earth's atmosphere. The hegemony had dismissed them as non-threatening civilian craft. Now they found themselves under assault from dozens of converted freighters and passenger ships. The aliens tried to respond with their main weapons, but the human vessels were too close to Earth's surface. Firing their heavy guns would cause massive damage to the planet below, which would make ruling the human population much more difficult. Veltar found himself in an impossible position. His fleet was superior to anything the humans possessed, but they were fighting in ways that made that superiority irrelevant. Every time he tried to use his advantages, the humans found ways to turn them into weaknesses. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving surrender demands from the human fleet." Veltar's mandibles clicked in amusement. "They demand our surrender? After this pathetic display of primitive tactics?" "The message is from someone called Admiral Brooks. She says we have 30 minutes to stand down, or they'll implement what they call the Crimson Doctrine." "What is this Crimson Doctrine?" Veltar asked. His tactical officer studied the data feeds from the battle. "Unknown, sir, but their tactics so far suggest they do not follow standard military protocols. They may be planning something unprecedented." For the first time since arriving at Earth, Veltar felt a flutter of uncertainty. The humans had already done several impossible things. What if they were planning something even worse? Commander Jake Morrison's voice came over the communication system, speaking directly to the alien fleet. "This is Admiral Morrison of the Terran Crimson Legion. You came here expecting us to surrender. Instead, you've learned that humans don't kneel easily." The human officer's voice was calm, almost conversational, which made his words more disturbing to the alien listeners. "You have 30 minutes to withdraw from human space. If you refuse, we will show you what happens when you back humans into a corner. The Crimson Legion is just getting started." Veltar looked at the tactical displays showing his damaged fleet. In less than 4 hours, primitive humans had accomplished what no enemy had managed in centuries of hegemony expansion. They had made the invincible conquerors bleed. The 30-minute deadline passed and Ambassador Veltar chose war. "Send the signal to Battle Commander Zephyron," he ordered, his pride wounded by the human ultimatum. "Tell him to bring the Second Fleet immediately. News of humanity's first victory spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. On worlds conquered by the hegemony decades ago, subjugated populations watched in amazement as reports filtered through alien communication networks. The impossible had happened. Someone had made the hegemony bleed. Admiral Claire Brooks established her command center aboard the captured alien dreadnought Sovereign, now renamed the UES Liberation. The massive vessel, once a symbol of hegemony power, now flew under human command with a crew of volunteers from a dozen different worlds. "The aliens are calling for reinforcements," Brooks reported during the emergency strategy meeting. "Our intelligence suggests they're bringing 50 more ships." President Carter nodded grimly from her underground bunker. "How long do we have?" 2 weeks, maybe 3, replied Captain Amy Rodriguez, now heading the newly formed Crimson Intelligence Division. "But we're not the same force they fought 3 days ago." She was right. The Crimson Legion had evolved rapidly during the first engagement. Dr. Kevin Park's teams had captured intact alien technology from the damaged ships, and engineer Lisa Grant was already developing improved versions of their disruption weapons. "We can build better jammers now," Lisa reported, "and I think I can modify our ship engines to match some of their stealth capabilities." More importantly, the victory had attracted unexpected allies. Captain Rick Davis received a coded transmission, while his fleet patrolled the outer planets. The message came from a Velkari commander named Kethvar, representing one of the hegemony's subject species. "The Velkari have served the hegemony for over 2 centuries, the alien explained during a secret meeting in the asteroid belt. "We have watched them conquer world after world, always promising protection and prosperity. but they treat us like slaves. Commander Susan Walsh, representing humanity in the negotiations, studied the insectoid alien carefully. What are you offering? Intelligence, supply routes, weaknesses in their fleet formations. The hegemony has ruled through fear for so long, they've forgotten that fear works both ways. The alliance with the Velkari provided humans with something invaluable: detailed knowledge of hegemony tactics, technology, and psychology. For the first time, humanity could plan their strategies based on inside information instead of guesswork. General Marcus Stone used the brief respite to expand the Crimson Legion training program. Volunteers continued to arrive from across human space, but now they were joined by aliens seeking to fight against their former masters. The hegemony has never faced a multi-species rebellion, Stone explained to his staff. They know how to crush individual worlds, but they've never dealt with coordinated resistance across multiple systems. Colonel Tony Mitchell had been studying the psychological profiles of hegemony commanders. The aliens were used to quick victories followed by immediate surrender. The concept of prolonged resistance was foreign to them. They're getting frustrated, Mitchell observed. Their standard doctrine calls for overwhelming force to end conflicts quickly, but we're not giving them the kind of targets they know how to fight. Dr. Helen Price had been working with Velkari medical experts to understand alien biology. What she learned changed everything about human combat tactics. Most hegemony species have enhanced physical capabilities, she reported, but they have one critical weakness. Their nervous systems are optimized for their homeworld environments. Changes in atmospheric pressure, gravity, or radiation affect them much more severely than they affect humans. This discovery led to the development of new boarding tactics. Instead of fighting aliens in standard ship environments, human forces began targeting life support systems, forcing the aliens to fight in conditions that favored human physiology. Real test came when Battle Commander Zephyron arrived with the Second Fleet. Zephyron was different from Veltar. Where the ambassador was arrogant and overconfident, the battle commander was methodical and experienced. He had crushed 17 rebellions during his career, and he approached the human problem like any other military challenge. Study their tactics, he ordered his staff aboard his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. These humans are clever, but they are still primitive. We will adapt our strategies and crush them systematically. Zephyron's first move was to establish a blockade around Earth's solar system. Instead of rushing in for a direct assault, he positioned his 50 ships to prevent human forces from escaping or receiving supplies. It was a sound strategy that should have forced humanity to surrender within weeks. But the humans had prepared for this possibility. Commander Jake Morrison led a desperate mission to break the blockade. His task force consisted of modified human ships equipped with the latest versions of Lisa Grant's stealth technology. Their mission was to prove that no alien blockade could contain humanity. Remember, Jake briefed his crews, we're not trying to destroy their fleet. We're proving a point. No matter how many ships they bring, they can't cage the human spirit. The breakout attempt became legendary. Human ships slipped through the alien formation, using a combination of stealth technology, electronic warfare, and pure audacity. They didn't try to fight the superior alien vessels. Instead, they demonstrated that human ingenuity could overcome any obstacle. Captain Rick Davis led one group of ships directly through the center of the alien formation, his vessels disguised as space debris until the last moment. Commander Susan Walsh took another group around the fleet's flank, using the gravity wells of outer planets to accelerate past the alien sensors. The psychological impact was devastating. Zephyron had positioned 50 ships to contain a handful of human vessels, but the humans simply walked through his carefully planned blockade as if it didn't exist. "How?" demanded Zephyron, watching the tactical displays in disbelief. "They're using techniques we've never encountered," replied his tactical officer. "Their ships appear and disappear at will. Our sensors cannot track them reliably." But the humans weren't finished. Colonel Tony Mitchell had been planning something even more audacious than the blockade run. Working with Velkari intelligence, he had identified the location of a major hegemony supply depot in a neighboring star system. We can't just defend ourselves forever, Mitchell argued during the strategic planning session. Eventually, they'll bring enough ships to overwhelm us. We need to take the fight to them. The raid on the Altair supply depot shocked the entire galaxy. A human strike force, supported by Velkari rebels, attacked a facility that the hegemony considered absolutely secure. The depot contained weapons and supplies for dozens of hegemony fleets accumulated over decades of conquest. Sergeant Bill Cooper led the ground assault, his enhanced soldiers moving through alien facilities with practiced efficiency. But this time they weren't just fighting hegemony forces. They were liberating aliens who had been enslaved by the Empire for generations. "Look at them," Cooper reported to Mitchell as his teams freed alien prisoners. "They've been waiting for someone to give them hope." The Altair raid accomplished more than just military objectives. It demonstrated to oppressed species throughout the galaxy that the hegemony could be defeated. Rebellion began spreading from world to world as subjugated populations realized they didn't have to accept their chains forever. Dr. Kevin Park's research teams had made another breakthrough while studying captured alien technology. They discovered that hegemony ships used centralized computer networks that could be hacked with the right techniques. "If we can infiltrate their data systems," Kevin explained to Admiral Brooks, "we can turn their own technology against them." The first successful hack occurred during the Battle of the Titan shipyards. Zephyron had attacked the human facility expecting an easy victory, but his ships suddenly found their own computers working against them. Weapon systems fired at friendly vessels, navigation systems provided false data, and communication networks broadcast human propaganda throughout the alien fleet. The battle became chaos as hegemony ships struggled to function with compromised computer systems. Human forces, coordinating their attacks with primitive but reliable manual systems, methodically destroyed alien vessels that couldn't fight back effectively. Zephyron retreated after losing 12 ships to what should have been an easy victory. For the first time in his career, he began to understand what he was really fighting. "These humans are not like other species," he reported to the Hegemony High Council. "They do not follow conventional military doctrine. They adapt constantly, learn from every engagement, and turn our strengths into weaknesses." "Then adapt yourself," replied the Council. "You have the finest ships in the galaxy and unlimited resources. Surely you can defeat one primitive species." But Zephyron was beginning to doubt that assessment. The humans had already accomplished several impossible things. What if they were capable of even more? Captain Amy Rodriguez intercepted alien communications, suggesting that other hegemony subject species were beginning their own rebellions. The Crimson Legion's success had inspired a galaxy-wide uprising against centuries of oppression. 6 months after the first alien ultimatum, the galaxy had changed forever. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberation, watching as ships from 17 different species took formation around his flagship. The Crimson Legion fleet had grown from a handful of desperate human vessels into the largest multi-species military force in galactic history. "Admiral," reported Captain Amy Rodriguez from the communications station, "we're receiving surrender requests from hegemony forces in the Vega system." Jake nodded calmly. It was the third surrender request they had received this week. The mighty hegemony, which had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years, was collapsing one system at a time. Battle Commander Zephyron's grand fleet of 50 dreadnoughts now lay broken in the asteroid fields around Arcturus Prime. The final battle had lasted only 6 hours, but it had taken months of preparation to achieve such a decisive victory. The key had been intelligence. Captain Rick Davis, now commanding a mixed squadron of human and alien vessels, had spent weeks infiltrating the enemy fleet using captured hegemony technology. His ships, disguised as routine supply vessels, had mapped every weakness in Zephyron's formation. "The aliens still think in terms of traditional fleet actions," Davis had reported before the battle. "They position their ships to fight other dreadnoughts, not to defend against boarding parties and electronic warfare." Commander Susan Walsh had coordinated with rebel forces throughout hegemony space. By the time Zephyron realized he was under attack, half his own officers had turned against him. The Velkari, the Jadar, and 6 other subject species had chosen freedom over servitude. Colonel Tony Mitchell's ground forces had evolved far beyond anything the aliens had encountered before. The soldiers of the Crimson Legion were no longer just humans with enhanced reflexes. They were a new type of warrior, trained to fight in any environment against any enemy. "We don't just win battles," Mitchell explained to the latest group of volunteers, which now included former hegemony soldiers seeking redemption. "We change the nature of warfare itself. Every engagement teaches us something new, makes us more dangerous." Dr. Helen Price had established medical centers throughout liberated space, treating wounded soldiers from dozens of species. Her enhancement techniques originally designed for humans had been adapted to work with alien physiology. The result was a generation of warriors unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Strength isn't just physical," Helen told her staff while treating casualties from the Arcturus battle. "These soldiers draw power from their cause. They fight not just for victory, but for the freedom of every thinking being in the galaxy." Engineer Lisa Grant's workshops had become centers of technological innovation. Working with alien engineers and scientists, her teams were developing new weapons and defensive systems that combined the best of human and alien technology. "We're not trying to match the hegemony's technology," Lisa explained to President Carter during their monthly briefing. "We're creating something entirely new, something they can't predict or counter." The psychological impact of the Crimson Legion's victories had spread throughout the galaxy. Dr. Kevin Park, now serving as humanity's chief xenologist, had studied the effect of prolonged warfare on hegemony morale. "They're losing faith in their own superiority," Kevin reported. "For over a millennium, they believed they were destined to rule because they were stronger and more advanced. But we've proven that intelligence and determination can overcome raw power." The proof came when Ambassador Veltar, the same alien who had delivered the original ultimatum to Earth, requested a meeting with human leadership. The once arrogant diplomat now sat in chains aboard a Crimson Legion prison ship, awaiting trial for war crimes. "Your species has accomplished something unprecedented," Veltar admitted during his interrogation by Captain Amy Rodriguez. "You have shown the galaxy that the hegemony can be defeated. Rebellions are spreading to every corner of our former empire." "Former empire?" Amy asked. "It is finished," Veltar replied, his mandibles clicking with what humans had learned was a sign of defeat. "The High Council is fragmenting. Half our member species have declared independence. The other half are fighting each other for control of what remains." General Marcus Stone had been busy establishing the new government structure for liberated space. The Crimson Legion was more than just a military force now. It had become the foundation for a new type of galactic civilization. "We're not building an empire," Stone explained to the Galactic Liberation Council, which included representatives from 47 species. "We're creating something different, a voluntary alliance based on mutual respect and shared ideals." President Carter, now serving as the first elected leader of the Terran Federation, addressed the council from New Geneva, Earth's new orbital capital. The space station, built from salvaged alien technology and human engineering, served as headquarters for the growing alliance. 6 months ago, the hegemony ordered humanity to kneel. Carter began her speech to representatives from across the galaxy. "They believed they could force us to abandon our colonies, surrender our freedom, and accept their chains." She paused, looking around the council chamber at the diverse collection of beings who had chosen to stand together against tyranny. They were wrong about humanity. But more importantly, they were wrong about the nature of freedom itself. You cannot suppress the desire for liberty by demonstrating superior firepower. You cannot enslave minds by conquering worlds, and you cannot break the spirit of any thinking being simply by demanding submission. The applause that followed came from dozens of different species, each expressing approval in their own unique way. Commander Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral of the Crimson Fleet, patrolled the borders of the expanding free zone. His ships protected trade routes, escorted refugee convoys, and responded to distress calls from worlds seeking liberation from the remnants of hegemony control. "Sir," reported his communications officer, a young Velkari named Sithak who had joined the Legion after his homeworld's liberation. We're receiving a transmission from the Outer Rim. Another world is requesting assistance against hegemony holdouts. Set course for the Tau Ceti system, Jake ordered, and signal the fleet. The Crimson Legion doesn't abandon anyone who asks for help. The final confrontation with organized hegemony forces came at the Battle of the Galactic Core, where the remaining hegemony High Council had retreated to their ancient fortress world. The planet was protected by automated defense systems that had been built over centuries, designed to be impregnable against any conceivable attack. But the Crimson Legion had learned not to attack the impossible directly. Colonel Mitchell's special forces infiltrated the fortress world using captured hegemony transport technology. Instead of trying to destroy the defenses, they targeted the power systems and computer networks that controlled them. Within hours, the impregnable fortress became a prison for its own defenders. "The age of the hegemony is over," announced Captain Rick Davis as Crimson Legion forces occupied the ancient capital. "Today, we begin the age of freedom." The war trials that followed established new principles of galactic law. Dr. Kevin Park served as chief prosecutor, presenting evidence of centuries of oppression and genocide committed by the hegemony against subject species. "Justice is not revenge," Kevin explained to the court. "We judge these individuals not to satisfy our anger, but to establish that no being, regardless of species or technology, has the right to enslave others." 5 years after the original ultimatum, Admiral Jake Morrison stood once again on the bridge of a flagship. But everything had changed. The UES Liberation now led a fleet of 300 vessels representing 56 different species, all united under the banner of the Crimson Legion. Young Lieutenant Sarah Wilson, a second-generation Crimson Legion officer whose parents had fought in the first battles against the aliens, approached with the daily intelligence briefing. "Sir, we have reports of first contact with a new species in the Andromeda sector," she said. "They appear to be peaceful, but they're requesting protection against something they call the Dark Fleet." Jake smiled. The galaxy was vast, and there would always be new challenges. But humanity had proven something important during their war against the hegemony. When faced with impossible odds, thinking beings could accomplish impossible things. "Prepare the fleet for departure," Jake ordered. "The Crimson Legion has work to do." As the massive fleet turned toward the unknown regions of space, a message broadcast throughout the galaxy on all frequencies. It was simple, direct, and carried the authority of hard-won victory. "This is Admiral Morrison of the Galactic Crimson Legion. We stand ready to defend the freedom of all thinking beings. No species will kneel to tyrants while we have ships to fly and soldiers to fight. The age of empires is over. The age of freedom has begun." The transmission ended, but its message echoed through the stars. Humanity had been ordered to kneel, but they had chosen instead to forge something greater than anyone had imagined possible. The Crimson Legion would endure as long as freedom needed defenders, and the galaxy would remember the day when one small species proved that the greatest strength comes not from technology or numbers, but from the refusal to surrender what matters most.